In today's episode, we are going to talk about the DNA. Was Richard Allen's DNA anywhere on this crime scene? Were the girls' DNA anywhere in Richard Allen's home, car, amongst his belongings? Today, we're going to talk about that. Hello, everybody. Okay, wrong screen again. Welcome back to the channel. This is Crafting and Crime Daily. I'm your host, Rebecca, and I recap live trials. So you have something to listen to while you're crafting. Maybe it's diamond painting, maybe it's crochet, watercolor painting. I am working on my Christmas watercolor collection, and it's epic. It's turning out so good, you guys. Okay. Tonight will be Craft With Me Wednesday. If you want to take a peek at what I'm working on, tune in. That will be at 7 p.m. Central Time. So I'm going to talk about day 9, and I do want to add a little explanation here about why my days might not match the YouTubers that are in the courtroom. I think they're saying it's that like day 9 is actually their day 11 because they're counting the jury selection as well. I'm just counting day 9 of testimony. And we are still on the state's case in chief. So yesterday they put on a DNA analyst. And of course, thank God I didn't have to listen to this, because I've heard it a million times. The whole DNA explanation, what is DNA, blah, 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 blah. And so we're going to skip over all that. So the first thing she tested was the SA kits. And you can imagine what that stands for. Not sure if I'm allowed to say that on YouTube. But there was male DNA found in the SA kits. But, am I saying that right? No, there was seminal fluid found in the SA kits with no DNA. Now, there's a few explanations for that. One might be that the person had a vasectomy, or I don't know, that he's sterile. Don't know. So, in any case, male DNA. Then underneath the fingernails of both girls and the external vaginal swabs of both girls, there was male DNA, but not enough to generate a profile. So that was a dead end. And one of the explanations for male DNA being on anything clothing wise is and I didn't know this, if you're in a family where there's a male, for example, my sister and I wash our stuff together now. I didn't used to, because she was a smoker. She's not smoking anymore, so now I just wash everything together. So now our DNA is mixing. You're going to find her DNA on my stuff. You're going to find my DNA on her stuff. So that could be an explanation why they're finding male DNA on some of the items, but nothing that they found as far as the male DNA was sufficient enough to generate a profile. So there was male DNA found on Libby's right breast, left thigh, and left breast, but again, not enough to generate a profile. There was tons of swabs submitted. No DNA sufficient to generate profiles. I think they were able to do generate 3 profiles. They found Libby's DNA, Abby's DNA, and another male DNA. Actually, there was 5. Libby, Abby, a male, which turned out to be one of the lab workers, and 2 unknown females, which they didn't concentrate on because the suspect was a male. Now, does that make any sense? Okay. So apparently the FBI had said that they had this experimental thing because there was a lot of hair collected, but a lot of it did not have roots. At this point in the science of DNA, there has to be a root in order for them to get the DNA. And there was one hair in it's either Abby or Libby's hand that turned out it was female. It had a root. It was female. They didn't test it back in 2017 because they were looking for a male suspect. But the recent testing has shown it's come back to Libby's sister, Kelsey. So, but at the time, or even now, I guess, I don't know, maybe it was back at the time, the FBI told them, we're doing some experiments where we're getting DNA off of the hair without a root. Would you like us to test it? And they said, nope. They didn't want, because that testing would have destroyed the hairs. They didn't want those hairs destroyed in case the science changed over time, and then they would be able to get a suspect. You already have a suspect. Now's the time. They didn't do it. Let me see if I'm missing anything out of this. I mean, the bottom line is Richard Allen's DNA was nowhere on this crime scene. They were not able to develop Richard Allen's DNA at the crime scene. So let's talk about Richard Allen's house. His house was searched. Things were tested for DNA. This lab person tested over 100 items between the crime scene and Richard Allen's house. Nothing came back with Abby or Libby's DNA from the house or the cars. Nothing. My cat is playing with the dog. It's so cute. Anyway. Okay. So that was the DNA. I'm not going to go item by item because we'd be here all day. So then they had a blood spatter expert who, according to the people that are fortunate to get one of those 24 public seats in that courtroom, this expert was well qualified and came across as very believable, very credible. So, but he has visited the crime scene, but not at the time. In 2024, he visited the crime scene. So maybe just to get the layout of the land. So as he's talking about his findings, they are showing photos of the girls at the crime scene. Libby's mom is there and she is bawling. Yeah. That's tough. It's really tough. And there's, yeah. So he was saying that blood is a fluid and it reacts in a repeatable and measurable way. And you can tell a lot from the blood that you find on a scene. So one of the things that was clarified to me finally was the size of the sticks that were on these girls' body. When they said sticks, I guess I was picturing a twig. These are not twigs. They said one of them might have been like 7 foot long, and big around. Apparently, when you do that, hearts come up during your lives, but not while you're recording, because it happened to one of the podcasters. I thought it was super cute. She's talking about the trunk of the tree, and hearts are going up. Anyway, huge, like tree trunks, but 2 on one girl, 3 on the other. And so heavy nonetheless. Keep all this in mind when we're talking about the suspect, Richard Allen, who is 5'4", and he's having to, well, I guess the girls were dead by the time he's dragging these tree trunks and putting them on there. Okay, allegedly. So the F tree had blood, what they're calling the F tree, and they're calling it the F tree now I understand, is because the blood was in the shape of an F. I can draw it for you. Hold on. So the blood on this tree was like, it was pretty concentrated, about 4 foot up, right here. And then it dripped down over here. So it looked like an F because there was some that, let me see, came across this way. So they're calling it the F tree. This expert actually said that this here, there was it didn't run all the way to here. So it's not really an F. He said it's more like an upside down L. And the explanation he thought could be that someone had their arm wrapped around the tree. We know that Libby had blood all over her hands and arms, and maybe she wrapped her arm around that tree to steady herself, because we know she was ambulatory at the scene after her throat was sliced, and then that blood is dripping down. And that's my artwork for today. I won't watercolor it or anything like that. Okay. Then he said the blood on Libby had moisture mixed into it, which was probably tears. Now, if that doesn't wrench your heart, I don't know what will. Oh my God. Then we know that Libby had blood on her right thigh. That he said that indicated to him that at some point she was sitting. And Libby. So what bottom line, I guess, is that they think Libby was stabbed. Now, she's the one that had the 3 vertical stabs in one location, but all at the crime scene. In one location at the crime scene, she walks over. She could have even been at the F tree. But anyway, there's a trail of blood to where her final resting place is. Oh, no. Or there's a trail of blood to the tree. There's a trail of blood, meaning she was ambulatory at some point. And then she is placed in her final resting place, and there was no drag marks. And he says the explanation could be that the explanation for no drag marks could be that there were lots and lots of leaves. And if someone was dragging someone through those leaves, they just would have accumulated under her, just sticking to the blood and everything that was under her. So you might not see drag marks. Because when they turned her over, there was a lot of leaves on her back. And then she had a lot of blood on her hands, but one of her hands had like a wipe mark, like it was swiped off. It's like blood everywhere, but right here. And the people in the courtroom kind of surmised, because when she was found, that arm was up. They think perhaps someone grabbed her by the hand and drug her to her final resting place. Now, let's go back to Richard Allen. He's 5'4". Libby is 5'4", 200 pounds. And we learned that Richard Allen, in the next episode, I'm going to tell you, Richard Allen has heart disease. Eddie did it that. He has heart disease. He has stents in his heart. This is not like, the guy that works out at the gym every day and can drag a 200-pound dead weight through the forest. Anyway, so let's go to Abby. He believed that she was moved at some point. He has absolutely no explanation for why there was no blood on her. From the neck down, absolutely clean. Clothes clean, no blood on the clothes, no blood on her hands. All the blood around the crime scene is Libby's. So she may have been washed. Or, yeah, I don't know. Nobody knows. And the other thing he said, the reason that the blood on the girls appeared like it was going the other direction instead of down the body. The other direction is someone may have pulled their head back and at an angle when they did it, so the blood is going up. Yeah. Isn't this fun testimony? Oh my God. Yeah. Oh, I did write it down here. So the F tree, Libby walked from the F tree to a certain point where there was a large pool of blood. They found the drips of blood and then the large pool of blood, and then was dragged to her final resting place, according to this blood splatter expert. And we don't have any reason to believe that that's not really what happened. I mean, who knows? The other explanation he said for Abby, he says he's never seen, because she would have died slowly. It was a jugular vein. She didn't die right away. And so he would have expected to see blood on the hands, because the instinct is to, try to put pressure on the wound. And the only explanation he could say for that is she may have been bound at the time, but there's no evidence to support that. She could have been unconscious or restrained, maybe by another person, perhaps. He feels like she was dressed at the time of her death, because if you would try to dress her afterwards, you would have got blood on the clothing. But there was blood, like a drop of blood. She was wearing a Converse shoe. In the tongue of that Converse shoe, they found blood, her blood. So how did that get there and nowhere on her clothes? We don't know. And he admitted that it is, that he cannot rule out that there was another person. He says, obviously, the minimum number of people would have been one, but I can't rule out that it was more than one. Okay. He never saw such a lack of blood with Abby. Never saw that before. But nothing to link Richard Allen to this crime scene. And all of his testimony was based off of those photographs. What are you doing on my craft table? Get off. Get off. You're going to make a mess. Sorry, cat time. Bye, Stitch. He is a little devil, that cat. I have two, but the other one's an angel. Pearl is an absolute angel. This is the troublemaker. We're going to have a little funny break here. He has learned how to turn on my light in the middle of the night. My light, it's a touch lamp. And if he wants me up, he just touches the lamp. Yeah. He's a crazy cat. Okay. So then at the end of the day, this was day 9, there was a sidebar. The jury left the room. They were arguing something at sidebar. And then they, after the jury left, they wanted to make a record of what was going on at the sidebar. And apparently Richard Allen has an email account that they want to come into evidence. Now, I'm very curious about meaning, they want to show stuff on his computer. So there's case law to support, the defense put forth case law to support that if more than one person has access to that computer, it should not come into evidence. And they think that his wife, Kathy, who's been in the courtroom every single day, she's there every single day, very supportive of her husband, very stoic, is probably going to say she had access to it. And if there's, the theory is that there's stuff about the girls after the murders on that computer. She's probably going to say that she was looking it up. Okay. So I can tell you we're at 20 minutes. So I'm going to go ahead with day 10 in the morning of day 10. They showed the interrogation videos. So the first interrogation was Officer Mullen. He's with the sheriff's department, and he was in the room together with Sheriff Liggett. Now, here's what happened. And I might have said this in a prior episode. They told him, come down to the police station. We want to give some of your things back. I want to give your car back. They go, he and his wife go, and they lead him into an interrogation room where there's cameras and that kind of thing. And you see I'm just going to explain what he says he did that day without going into a lot of detail. So the interview starts out very, very cordial. They're talking about the military service and where he's from. He's an original resident. He's from that area of Indiana. They went over his original statement. It's a lot of rapport building, He has one daughter. He talks about he has a history of a heart attack in his 30s. When he was in his 30s, he had stents. He's not a religious person. He suffers from depression, anxiety, high blood pressure, high cholesterol. Yeah. Welcome to my world, sweetheart. And one of my subscribers is going to love this next comment because he was a former Walmart manager. He was a Walmart manager. Richard Allen was a Walmart manager. And he stopped doing that because he said it was just such a bureaucracy. Now, there's a lot of irony in that statement. But he said he felt like Walmart was more concerned about getting the spreadsheets correct than they were concerned about customer service. So he quit and he found a job at CVS. I don't know what he was doing at CVS. So on the morning of February 13th, earlier in the day, he goes, I think his mom might have had surgery, goes over to his mom's house to visit her. I think he said that was around 11, or he left around 11. Let's see. Yeah, he left his mom's house around 11:15. The reason he left is his sister comes over and says, we're planning on going to lunch. And he's like, I don't want to go to lunch with you guys. So he says he's going to go back home. And he goes back home and he says, it was a unseasonably warm day. So he gets home, puts on a jacket, and decides he's going to go down to the trails. He says this is something he did maybe once a week or so. He liked to look at the fish. He's a fisherman. And he said he would usually just walk to the bridge, up to the first platform. He said way back like 2006, 2010, years past, he would go across the bridge. But he says back then the bridge was in much better shape than it is now. He goes, now I won't go across that bridge. Interesting. So he says he thought he got down to the trail about noon or 1 o'clock-ish. So, which is a different time frame than we've been hearing up to now. But here's what I think is happening. He talks in generalities. Oh, I left my mom's house 11:15. Oh, it was noon, 1 o'clock. Oh, it was 1:30. He doesn't know. He doesn't remember. He's just kind of generalizing somewhere in that time frame. Yeah. So he said he walked down to the high bridge to the first platform and then turn around on the way back. He sits on a bench for a little bit, checking his stock ticker. This was his hobby. He liked to trade stocks. He says, I thought he could get rich quick, but he says, I don't do that anymore. It's too risky. So he probably lost some money. Anyway, he's not sure where he parked. It could have been here or here. There's another one of those generalities. He used the Mears entrance, but he said the farmers didn't like for you to park at that Mears entrance. So he either parked across from the Mears entrance or at this old building. He doesn't remember. He doesn't remember what car he drove that day. Apparently, the black Ford Focus was a car that he bought after he got into this really bad accident where he fell asleep at the wheel. And because it was a newer vehicle, he let his wife use that most of the time, and he used the other car. But he doesn't remember on this day which car he had. He said he was on the trail for about an hour. And then he describes the girl, because as he's entering the trail, he says there were 3 girls leaving. Now, we know it sounds like he ran into the 4 girls that were leaving. There were actually 4 girls leaving. He says one of them looked like the babysitter, and the other ones were very young, which does match the description of these girls. 2 of them were 17, and the other 2 were quite young, 12, 13 years old. He did say where he parked, there were no other vehicles, but he doesn't remember where he parked. Let's see. Oh, the jacket that he was wearing back then, he says it might have been the blue Carhartt jacket. It could have been my black hooded jacket. I don't remember. See, another one of these generalities. And this is the problem with this case, because he was talking in generalities and the police are cherry picking from this interrogation what they want to put in the affidavit, whatever matches their theory of the case. He was wearing a sweatshirt and he would keep a skull cap in his pocket, and he was probably wearing tennis shoes. Now, he was asked about the phone that he had in 2017. He goes, it might be in the back of the closet. My wife would know where it's at. I don't know. He says, we might have recycled it. I don't know. But then they asked, can we take your phone and look at it? And he says, yeah, okay, you can take my phone. Being very cooperative. But then they tried to kind of push it. At one point, he says, my wife and I like to watch Dateline. Kind of sounds like you think I did it. Because they were trying to say, well, how about, can we look at your house? Can we look at your car? And he's like, not without a warrant. Now his anxiety, he's getting anxious. He says, I definitely wasn't out there till 3:30. He says, I left more around 1:30. And then the police officer said, we're here because we didn't find the guy who did this. So he says, why are you crying? What's wrong? What's the matter, buddy? Huh? Can't you wait a few more minutes? I think he wants to go outside. Anyway. So here's Richard Allen's response. I don't want to turn into that guy. We watch Dateline. I'm not worried. There's nothing that will tie me to it. But I want to talk to my wife. I know you can get a warrant. I'm not stupid. So now he's really agitated. So the police leave the room. And as he's leaving the room, the podcasters that are in the courtroom said that he was looking at his phone and put it down. He picked it up again. He's yawning. He's not doing anything unusual. So they come back in the room with a picture of him, or with a picture of his car going out to the trail that was taken on that surveillance camera. And then they show him a picture of the bridge guy, the enhanced picture of the bridge guy. And they ask, is that you? And he says, if it's taken from the girl's phone, it's absolutely not me. I've never met those girls or seen them. So now he's starting to become incredulous and says, I guess we are done here. It's not me. And they say, but you're wearing the same clothes. And he says, oh, Jesus. He says, we're done here. Arrest me or take me home. I'm done. Am I free to leave? You're an asshole. And the audience was chuckling at that, and one of the jurors was smiling. So that was the first interview, the video of the first interview. Now, I haven't, I kind of described to you what happened during the second interview, that where they use that read technique, but I am curious if there was some additional thoughts that these people in one of those 24 public seats had anything else to add about that second interview with Officer Holman, the Indiana State Police officer. So that I will bring you tomorrow in tomorrow's episode. So that's it for today, because we are at the 30-minute mark, and I don't want you guys to start yawning and go watch Dateline. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Don't forget tonight, 7 p.m. It is the finale also of their Craft Your Treat 2024 event that myself and DP Addiction Adventures had, where we're going to spin the wheel. It's going to be the last part of the show. We're going to spin the wheel and give away the grand prize, which is a diamond painting. You guys are not going to want to miss to see who wins. So I'll see you then, or I'll see you in tomorrow's Delphi murder video. Have a great day, everybody. Bye.